Okay, so you're ready to name your business. What do? You cannot be successful selling comics with a name like the Laughing Ogre because no one knows what you do. Yeah, we're going to do it anyway. The Laughing Ogre doesn't say comics. So when we put the sign up, we thought we really need something that says comics. We debated between Spidey's face, the Superman logo, or the Batman logo, and decided on the Superman logo. It really, in this case, it was no deeper than that. What says comics that we can put up there? Sure. It wasn't like, oh, the S is for hope. There was a shop in Columbus called the Wizard of Comics. My friend Rich ran it, and he said, hey, you're off on Thursdays. Why don't you come in and pitch in, process books for me, I'll give you a trade, take a little bit off of your monthly comic budget, and have a good time. And in doing so, of course, processing the back issues means that you're buying more than you're possibly getting in trade, but also it kind of scratched that itch that I didn't know was there, and it was like, really like selling comics. So eventually, yeah, they hired me on full time. One of the books that made us different early on was Dave Laflame's Stray Bullets. It's a black and white crime comic, and it was like, I read it and I'm like, this is just wonderful. And when it came out, Tarantino films were more top of mind, and people would come in and they'd be getting their stuff. I'm like, you ever tried this? And it's like, oh, I don't read black and white. You like Quentin Tarantino movies? And they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, I start talking to you about it, and it's like, oh, I'll give that a try. But that was when, like, we hadn't been open more than a couple years, so we were everybody's second shop. People would go to their normal shop, pick up their pole, and then he'd come here to see what else, because we're centrally located. And with Stray Bullets, people are like, yeah, my shop won't even order this. I'm like, I don't understand. And at first, I didn't really believe it. There's just no way. You tell somebody you want to buy a comic book. It's like, yeah, they said, get all that weird stuff over at the Ogre. We'll have your part, we'll pull for you. And again, at first, I'm not believing it because there's just no way you're going to turn away business. I don't care if it's just a single book. You put it on your pull, I'll get it in for you. But enough people told me, and eventually people are like, I started questioning why I've got two polls, because they start up a poll here too with stuff that the other store wouldn't carry. Terry Waldemeier used to own the Comic Town stores, and someone came in and said, Terry Waldemeier says he's got the best store in town. I'm like, sure. He goes, you think he's got the best store in town? I said, no, I think we are. He's like, well, you can't both be, right? And I said, why? Because I have created the store that I want. I think this is the way to run a comic store. And Terry did the same thing. We had the benefit of having 3 different ownership groups. Me and Rod and Darren opened the store way back when, and then Gary bought it, and then Chris bought it from Gary. And the all ages section, that was from Gary. We did not have a lot of kids coming in, so we never even considered having an all ages section. Was the market there and we just didn't take advantage of it? It's possible, but yeah, that's a major thing, especially having it right inside the door. It's not unusual for people to point out like how important the store has been to them over the years. It's awesome. There's something about comics that seems to pull people together like other things don't. Usually it's an adult. Like, I was way behind in reading. And then Mom took me and we bought a bunch of comic books. I was 2 years behind my peers. Now I'm 2 or 3 years ahead of my peers. It got me changed around. It changed that trajectory. I used to hate to read. You give me a prose book and it was like pulling teeth to get through it, which I've never understood personally because I've been a voracious reader of everything, even back when it was just a cereal box, But yeah, there's so many people that come to me and say, and it was right over there. We used to have the spinner rack. I went to the spinner rack and, picked out Planetary #1, that, the Star comic, not Warren's Planetary #1, right? But it's like I just, and it started me on this. They went to Spider-Man, and they really want to share like their trek. There's nothing I like better than someone coming up and saying, and I'm in the new mood for something new, or I've never read comics before. Can you recommend something? It's like, can I? Yes. It's the highlight of your day. When I was a kid, people would say, what do you want to do for a living? And I said, I don't know, but when I retire, I want to use bookstore because I want to sit around all day reading and then sharing great fiction with, books that I love with everybody that walks in the door. I got to do it before I retire now. It's like a dream come true. There's a certain amount of delight that you find sometimes when somebody picks something up and they read it and you just hear this little, like a little giggle, and they like scamper up to the counter like they can't wait to read it and go home. So there are two books that if I could get the whole world to read, two comic books, the first one will be Mouse. Read that, look what people can do to each other. But a follow-up and like another version of that in a lot of ways is Barefoot Gen. It's an autobiographical novel by a guy that lived through Hiroshima. That first book is amazing. Yeah. It really, everybody should read it. But the first 3/4 are what the Japanese peasants were going through in order to fund the war and how horrible it was and what their family was going through before that bomb hit and stuff. And you see these similar themes. It's like, you know, before we can go to war with somebody, we have to make sure that nobody thinks they're human. You know, you have to beat them down. You have to call them names and label them this and label them that. And like those two books are just these great learning tools. It's like, this is what governments and or wealthy people do in order to manipulate the people that they need to fund these things. We've always been like a story store. An author store. There are a lot of artists that I adore, but I don't usually have like, oh, you got to read this because this guy drew it. But yeah, you had to read this because this guy wrote it. Absolutely. Give somebody something to come back next month for. They really are. They want to see these characters. They fall in love with these characters. You care about them. You know, it marvels me when something happens to a character that I know is fictional, that somebody owns it, but something happens to it and I get choked up. It's just like this kudos that you got to throw to those authors, that they make you care about people that you don't, you know, that aren't real. Terry Moore, that last Strange in Paradise story, it was just where Kachu and Francine were together again. She returned home, and it was like, it almost brought a tear to my eye. I was so happy for these fictional characters that I love so much. The biggest thing is tell good stories. Tell good stories, and then find a way to tell people that aren't reading your books how good your books are. I think we cannot, as an industry, we can't be defeated. We're going to overcome whatever they throw at us, and they will continue to throw different stuff at us, and we will continue to best it and keep going.